The following is a program of the Santa Barbara County Education Office. To learn more, visit sbceo.org.
Hi, I'm Susan Salcido, Santa Barbara County Superintendent of Schools. I'm so delighted today to introduce our guest, Caleb Chadwick, construction technology teacher at Santa Barbara High School. Caleb, welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm so glad you're here. You're a recent recipient of the Marvin, Melvin Career Technical Education Award. That's an award that's given to career technical educators in Santa Barbara County. We're delighted that you're here with us today, and we're going to dive right into teaching and education, but we want to start at the very beginning. So we're hoping that we can hear from you. Where did you grow up? Where were you born? Where were you raised? Tell us a little bit about your childhood.
Okay, I was born in Southern California, in Norco, and I lived there until I was about 11. We lived in Norco because my parents had horses, and Norco allowed, I think, a ridiculous amount of horses per acre, and we had, I think, the maximum. When I was 11, we moved to Northern California, and my grandfather bought about 5 acres right on the river. We moved up there, and then my mom found a ranch that she currently runs, and it's 80 acres. So we have everything up there, horses and pigs and goats and chickens, and any animal that makes noise or smells weird or anything, we have it.
And when and how did you know you wanted to be a teacher? What drew you to teaching?
Well, I didn't always want to be a teacher. I was a general contractor. My wife and I, who will have been married 13 years in June. We moved to Santa Barbara from Lake Arrowhead, and we lived there for 10 years. And I ran a small construction company. She's a realtor, and she was practicing there. And she doesn't practice here, but we have 4 kids now, and I was running a construction company, and she was doing real estate. I was pretty successful, not huge numbers or anything, but always working even through the downtime, and the market went bad in 2007, but we still were managing to do little jobs here and there. And then as the market started doing really well, I noticed I was working all the time. And I had a brother named Nate, and he ended up dying of cancer. But my last conversation with him, he asked, like, how are you doing? I was like, I'm doing good, man, trying to be positive. And I was like, we're working all the time, work's going great, and yeah, I'm just busy. And he's like, well, that's not really what I was asking. How are you? And I said, I'm tired, and I feel like maybe I would rather just have a job where I'm home every day and see my kids, and maybe not make as much money and go live by the beach or something. And he said, you should do that. And I said, yeah, maybe. He's like, no, I'm serious, you really should. He's like, you don't know what life's gonna do and if you have the chance. And that was kind of like where a seed was planted, like in my heart, and I just started thinking about that. And a few weeks later, Timmy Palmer, who was a teacher at Santa Barbara Junior High and last year's recipient of the Marvin Melvin Award, invited me to apply for the teaching position that opened up. I kind of laughed at him, and I said, I'm not a teacher, I'm a general contractor, and I don't have that credential, and didn't go to college, and all the reasons why I shouldn't do it. And he kind of just smiled. It's like, well, if you're supposed to do it, you're supposed to do it. And so my wife actually applied for me when I was doing a tile job. I was tiling a shower, and she called me, and she said, I just sent in your application. I was like, okay. And I got a call back, which I thought they were gonna say, you forgot all these paperwork, or all these pieces of paper you're supposed to send in. And they said, we would like to interview you. And I couldn't do the interview in person, so I did it over the phone. And then they said they would like to meet me. And we always liked Santa Barbara, and we thought, well, we'll come down for the weekend and we'll do an interview and hang out. And long story short, Dr. Cash said, after about 5 minutes, he said, I would really like to offer you the job, and I think you'd be great in it. And at the time, I had no idea what was happening. And I also had no idea what the job would entail. But that's sort of how I became a teacher.
It's a great story. It's a bit of a non-conventional pathway, but I think we're lucky to have you in it. So tell us about your current teaching assignment. You're at Santa Barbara High School.
I am. I'm at Santa Barbara High School full-time. I was originally at Santa Barbara for 2 periods in the morning, and then San Marcos for 2 periods in the afternoon for the first 2 years. Since then, Justin Howe's taken over at San Marcos, and I'm full-time at Santa Barbara. My assignment now, the class is growing, and as we do more and more projects, and especially now that we're doing the tiny house project, more students are getting involved with it, and it's a lot of fun. This year, I told my wife, this year was the first time where I felt like the school year couldn't start soon enough, whereas before I just wanted, 1 or 2 more weeks or maybe months of summer to last. I do enjoy teaching. I did, but it was really hard. It was a difficult transition from going from private work, working with customers and inspectors and architects and designers, to students who can be very disrespectful at times. And it was just completely different than anything I'd done. And I think when I first started, I had this thought, oh, it's woodshop, I'm gonna have some fun projects, and the students are gonna wanna listen to everything I say, and they're gonna just like the class and wanna do it. And then my first day happened, and I quickly learned I was wrong.
A bit of a surprise that first day, huh?
Yeah.
So for viewers who are listening and watching, they know you're a construction technology teacher, but they might not know the schedule that you're teaching or the actual classes. Can you say a little bit about those?
All right, so I have 2 intro classes that are...
To woodshop?
Yeah, to construction technology, or woodshop. We call it all construction technology and fine woodworking. I have 2 intro classes, and then I have 1 intermediate and advanced, because it's kind of a smaller group, and so they put them together. I have 3 of the construction classes. I'm working with Kelly Choi's program, the Academy for Success, and that takes up the rest of my afternoon. I would like to have more construction classes, because that's more of where my passion is, and I want to see that grow. But I really enjoy working with the Academy as well. So each class has a maximum of 32 students. My classes usually are right around 30, so 90 construction class students, and then about 30 Academy students right now.
Thank you. So let's focus on those construction tech classes for now, and talk about your teaching style there and what we might see if we were to walk in your classroom.
If you walk into my classroom, it depends. The beginning of my class starts out sort of a conversational lecture. I notice the more I talk, the less the students are engaged and listen. And so I really try to get them to teach each other as much as I'm teaching. Not because I'm lazy, but I've seen that become way more effective. If one of the students tells another student something, they'll accept it right away and buy in. So if you walked in the beginning, I would have the students doing some warm-up activity. We talk about the plan for what we're doing today, and maybe if it's a new technique or a type of tool we're using. And then once that happens, you'd see all the students get glasses and get their tape measures and get all their gear. And I'd probably have 3 or 4 that would come and say, I'm stuck on this part of my project, what should I do with this or that? And I kind of just, walk around the shop and make sure everyone's being safe. And my general thing is I tell people to put their glasses on, because they'll take them off and forget. And we have a pretty strict wear glasses all the time in the shop rule. It's very loud, it's dusty. Everyone, when you walk in, everyone smells the wood shop. It smells like, a wood shop, how it should, with, sawdust and all that. And it's fun. It's loud and kind of chaotic, but in a good way.
I mentioned earlier that you're a recipient of the Marvin Melvin Career Technical Educator Award. What was your reaction to hearing that?
I was really surprised. This is my 4th year teaching, and I also know that there's a lot of teachers that have been teaching for quite a while that have given me the ability to teach and in the way that I do, and I feel like there's other teachers that are more deserving, but I'm also very grateful. But yeah, I would say overall I was mostly surprised.
And technology is a big part of your classroom, it sounds like. How are students using technology?
Typically, we use the TV for the students to see a new type of project or new type of technique. Even if it's myself, I've noticed the students have a lot more buy-in when they see it on a screen. We do a lot of different type of like Kahoot tests where students will kind of have a game where they compete against each other who can answer the question first and who can, it has to be correct to get points. And so I try to incorporate that as much as possible. And I actually was just talking with Jamie Davis, who is a jewelry art teacher, and our classes have a similar student population and it's kind of similar feeling. There's a lot of hands-on and creativity. But we're talking about how we really promote YouTube channels and, education via YouTube because that's where the students are going to naturally want to go anyways. And for me, I've seen that it's kind of fun to watch let's say make a box and it's a secret compartment. But one of the things I'll do is I'll ask the students to list the techniques, but then also list anything that they see that the instructor or the person making the video does incorrectly, like a safety violation or a tool not set up properly. So that's kind of fun too because it teaches the students critical thinking so that not only are they learning what to do, but they're also learning that not everything they see on YouTube is necessarily correct. So I do that quite a bit, and with the Kahoot, the students use either iPads or phones or laptops, and they do a lot of their submission. After each project they do, they have to submit a reflective journal, and that's all online. So the more technology-based our computers and YouTube a project can be, the greater success that I've seen in my class.
And earlier today, you spoke about the tiny house project that you're working towards. I'm so interested in hearing more. I know our viewers are too. Can you say all about it? What is the tiny house project?
So the tiny house project came about very, very slowly. But when I was first hired, I was trying to think, because I'm a general contractor and I'm used to building. And one of the aspects of building that I really enjoy is remodeling. When you take something that's kind of broken or not so pretty and you make it amazing. And so when I first started, I thought, what we can do what classes used to do a long time ago and buy a cheap rundown house and remodel it and the students can see that process and enjoy that. And then I found out that you can buy a cheap rundown house in Santa Barbara could still be $1 million. So that idea kind of went out the window. And the tiny house project was kind of a result of working through that. Chris Mulcoy at DP was working on building sheds, but wanted electrical and plumbing. And so the tiny house movement at that time was really small. In fact, when I told anyone that we're going to build a tiny house, there was very few people that knew what we were talking about. And Mr. Becchio, or Dr. Becchio now at my school, was very supportive and bought plans a few weeks after I started. And I thought that meant we'd buy materials the following week, and then I found out that district funding is, different than private funding, and just because you can do something doesn't mean you have all the materials to do it. So the tiny house project kind of started, the idea started in the beginning, the first year, but this fourth year teaching is the first year that we've gotten to do it. And largely because the Women's Fund of Santa Barbara gave us a $50,000 grant through Trade Art. Trade Art applied for a grant, and it's $50,000 for the 3 high schools to build a tiny house. We're all building that together. I don't know if we've already talked about Trade Art or not, but
Please, I'd like to know more about the community partners that are really supporting the tiny house movement and giving you wings.
So our main support is from Trade Art. Leslie Meadowcroft Skipper is the founder of Trade Art. Frank Skipper is currently, I think, the head chairman, and I'm on the board, as are several other teachers. The reason why my shop is open and still a wood shop and not something else is because of trade art, and the same for most of the shops in the district. I know Santa Barbara High specifically was 1 or 2 weeks worth away from being designated for something else. And Trade Art stepped in and said, no, we really need to keep these open. And so Trade Art is a local foundation that it's a nonprofit. No one gets paid a salary, and they really, really do an amazing job of making sure that technical education, specifically in construction and that type of art, is still viable for students to do, to take. And my classroom, if you walked into it, there's some very old tools that they're good tools, but they're really old, and then there's some very new tools, and the new tools mostly are a result of trade art. And so they put a lot of money into our classroom. They put a lot of time into working with us to develop curriculum that is going to support local companies to employ students once they graduate. We recently developed a pathway passport that basically will track a student from junior high, from 7th grade through high school, and list their proficiencies in construction. So what skills do they know? What tools are they competent to use? And the idea is that a student would take this and give it to a potential employer, and that potential employer could then kind of put them at the top of their list to interview and to discuss, possibly hiring. So through Trade Art, the Women's Fund grant happened. I was able to, with Patrick Foster from Santa Barbara City College, present the tiny home project to the Women's Fund and what we're doing. And then Trade Art, who Patrick Foster is also on the board of, submitted the grant and won that grant from them. And they gave us $50,000, which I feel like that initial, and the idea is that money would help all the schools start, and then we'll go from there, because once we build one, we can sell it and then build another one with the profits. And I felt like that $50,000 was kind of a key point that the community and the district started to see the wood shops as being relevant and important again. And the district was already supporting us, but I think for them to see an outside agency give so much money and so much support to something, it caused them to pause and then realize, yeah, this is something we were really excited about, and other companies as well. And the idea is we're going to be showcasing those tiny houses at the award show each year, and to try to get more community involvement. And so basically, Trade Art is, through the support of Trade Art, all these other entities, the Women's Fund, and Partners in Education, they're a big support of us. I have a student that is interning with D.D. Ford through Partners in Education. I know that San Marcos has a student interning there as well. And they've always been great. They come into my classroom, and I've had other students intern, but usually not necessarily for construction, which is my goal. And so my prize student, who won an award at the show last year, she's interning for D.D. Ford this summer.
The community partners that you just described are so impactful in so many ways. It's really incredible how much they've rallied around this project and your students and career technical education. And it's really exciting to hear. In terms of the funding that you need, the ongoing sustainability, is that through selling the tiny houses?
Yeah, so the idea is that if we can sell them for at least what we need to make them, or hopefully more, we can build more tiny homes and upgrade tools in the shop at the same time, and have good working conditions for our students to learn in.
That's great. And your students that have been filmed or interviewed, they talk a lot about the hands-on learning, the project-based learning that they're receiving from your classes. Can you say more about what they're learning in your classes to help them with their either college or career or career?
Yeah, it's a good question. So recently, a discussion we've been having in class is no matter if you're in a construction tech class or if you're in an English class or a math class or any class, that just being proficient at the skills is not what a potential employer or a teacher or friends want in a person. And we discussed how we've been discussing ongoing each week. We related it sort of to working out. So let's say you like to go to the gym, and I have a lot of football players in my room, so I used bench press. All the guys love the bench press, and I said, let's say you're really strong at the bench press, but not so much with doing leg exercises. And I was like, is that wrong to notice that or to understand that? And they're like, no. I said, so character-wise, it's much more difficult for us to be objective in that way. And so one of the things that we've all, and myself included, have done is each Monday we'll list a character or attitude trait that we want to increase and to work out and for that week. And the reason why we're doing that is I had them all list their experiences with teachers that were negative and positive, and what makes a good teacher, what makes a bad teacher. And then we flipped it around to those are the very same things that makes a good student or a bad student. And it's not so much what you know, it's that attitude behind it. And so that part of my class, I think, will impact them forever and wherever they go, as if they take it to heart. And I think a lot of them do, and eventually I think all of them will realize what I was doing, even if it's not a year or two from now. But on the practical side of it, everyone in my class is going to live in a home. Everyone has friends that, need repairs on homes. And I was just talking to my class today about, if your sink starts leaking and you have to call a plumber, it's an easy $100 that you're going to have to spend, if not more. And now if you can fix that, maybe you can fix it in 10 minutes or an hour or 2 hours. Like, you just saved that money. You get to keep it. Or better yet, like, part of the really fun, or one of the things I most enjoy about being a contractor and doing woodworking and all that is the ability to help out friends that have an issue. And it's so rewarding to have a skill set that you can use to fix things for yourself, but more importantly, to help your friends and family. And I think for that reason, my class, I think, will go with them no matter if they pursue an academic or if they go straight into the job field.
Say what is the best part about teaching?
The best part? Summer? No. The best part about teaching, I think the most rewarding part is when you see students, well, my class, so I get a lot of students that necessarily don't have a high amount of self-worth initially. Not all of them, some of them do. But I think the most rewarding is when a student that maybe doesn't have a very strong feeling of self-worth comes in, and then they realize that they are really good at woodworking or crafting or making something, that they can picture something in their mind, and then through some hard work and a little bit of sweat, like, they can make it, and other people recognize and see that value, and so they have that value for themselves. And to really see a confidence in some of the students that wasn't there before, that's really, really rewarding. I've had several students that have done things that they didn't think they can, and that's fun. But I was thinking about it. I think seeing the students change, like, their mindset of how they view themselves because of what they can do is the most rewarding part.
And you're a relatively new teacher. You said 4 years.
Yeah.
So given your perspective of 4 years in, what advice would you give to a new teacher just starting out?
A new teacher. Hang in there, first of all. I think the first years is a little rough and bumpy, and and that's okay. I think the biggest thing I do different than my first year is I don't feel like I have to know the answer for everything. It's okay to say, I don't know. It's okay to say, let's figure that out together. And I think just being yourself, like not trying to be teachery. I don't know. That's a term I've used when I feel like someone's being too, it's almost like a fake sense of like, oh yes, and then like I have a teachery voice that I use when the students are not listening, and they kind of hear and they're like, oh, that's different. But I think just being yourself, and also there's so many colleagues that you'll have around you, but teaching is really a profession that kind of pushes you towards isolation, because you have to teach your class in your room, and they have to teach, other teachers are teaching their classes in their room. There's not necessarily a lot of interaction unless you kind of work for that, but it's really worth working for, because you can see how teachers respond to different things. You can bounce ideas back and forth, and yeah, so just be yourself and look for help.
That's great. We have one last question, time for one brief one, and that is to have you give a brief message out to students out there. What might you say?
To future students?
To your current students or future students.
I would say to current students, I hope that they all know that they can do more than they knew yesterday. They're going to be able to do more from here on out. I hope they would all know that I believed in them, and that I think my expectations are so much higher for them than theirs are yet, but I feel like they'll get there. For new students, you should take woodshop because it's really fun. You get to work with your hands, and it's dirty and noisy and loud, and you don't have to sit there the whole time. So yeah, those two things.
Thank you, Caleb, for joining me today, being a guest today, and being such an inspiration for so many students. We really appreciate what you do, and thank you for being here today.
Thanks, Susan.
I'm Susan Salcido, Santa Barbara County Superintendent of Schools. Thank you so much for joining us today on this edition of Talking with Teachers.